We hope you enjoy this episode of the Modern Arizona podcast. But first, an important message for our listeners.
Hello, this is Billie Tarascio, owner of Modern Law. We're a family law firm in Phoenix, Arizona, with offices throughout the state. We have attorneys who can help you with every aspect of your family law case. We also have a legal clinic run by students for those of you who need budget-friendly resources, and we have lawyers who've been practicing for more than 20 years. Collectively, Modern Law has more than 200 years of legal experience. So when you hire Modern Law, you're not just getting an attorney, you're getting a team. If you live in Arizona and need representation, call us today. That's 480-649-2905 or visit us at mymodernlaw.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Modern Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Billie Tarascio, joined today by Tawni Browning. Tawni Browning is a local human who does so many interesting things. She is a producer on A&E's Secrets of Polygamy. She has worked undercover with skinhead organizations. Her husband, Matson Browning, has been a guest on the show and has been one of people's very favorite guests. And today we're going to talk about cults, about hate, about human dynamics, maybe a little bit about what's going on in our current political climate. Welcome to the show, Tawni.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. You do good work, Billie.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you're also a mother of 5.
Yes.
Which you say is obviously the number one and the most important job. Can you explain to me how a mother of 5 ended up doing the things that you've done?
Well, I never even really thought I'd be a mother of 5. I just always wanted to be a country singer. And I know that sounds so crazy, but that's really what I wanted in life. And life tends to take you in different directions. And I found that in order to be a healthy home with the crazy stuff that my husband was doing in law enforcement, I needed to make that my focus. And that's exactly what we did. I wanted them to have as normal of a life as possible. And in order to do that, that had to be my focus, if that makes sense.
It does. So how did you find yourself working and becoming an author and a television producer and going undercover?
Well, the undercover stuff happened when, and we kind of detailed this in our book and stuff, but my children had a 4-H lamb. And that lamb was slaughtered and murdered on our back porch step the day after Christmas. And I just knew I couldn't just sit back. I needed to get into the hearts and minds of these fellas in a way that only a woman can. And that's kind of how the whole thing started.
When did this happen?
It was when my oldest was 8 years old. It was his 4-H project. Old Glory.
Okay, so you were the victim of a crime.
Yeah.
And
well, we think, the police didn't really, even Matt being in law enforcement, they really didn't even take it that seriously. So I knew for me, it was so serious. Like it had come home. No longer were we our little Disney-esque home that I was trying to create, but someone had penetrated that barrier, that bubble, and I no longer could just sit back and be behind the scenes.
Okay, so you launched your own individual investigation to find out who had slaughtered your son's lamb.
Well, mostly I wanted to get into the hearts and minds of the people that Matt, I wanted to understand it. And I knew that if so I dug into every book I could find. I started talking to these guys, doing interviews with them, basic interviews, so that I could understand them. I needed to understand the enemy.
Okay.
In a way, and Matt did it on the street. I did it from this vantage point, from a totally different vantage point, which Matt didn't, I mean, I got to be honest, Matt didn't always appreciate that. He didn't appreciate what I was doing, but he couldn't have stopped me from doing it. It probably wasn't even something that should have happened, but he really couldn't control once I got started what I was doing, because it was in our home. People didn't think it was that important, and it was affecting everything in our lives.
So who was the culprit of the lamb slaughtering? Like, how did this happen?
We think that, I mean, we never did actually find out. And he was working a lot of crazy things from the Mexican mafia to Nazi skinheads. And we're pretty sure it was the Nazis that that came and did that. But we will never know. We will
Okay.
never know.
So you dove in, you learned all about the Nazi skinhead. Should we call them a cult or a gang?
They're a gang. Matt worked very hard with one of your other guests to get them in Arizona to be made, white supremacists to be made. Amy, Gina, God be here, I think is her
Mhm.
name. She's
Yes.
the one that told me that her and Matt did that. Matt didn't even share that with me. So they in Arizona, are considered a gang because of their work together collectively.
Okay. Okay. So you began your own investigation diving into how these groups of humans operate. Like, how can groups of humans come together and do these heinous crimes?
Well, I knew they had mothers. I knew
Yeah.
that there was people that loved them. I knew somewhere in there they had something I could get to try to understand, like, how can you do this? And I found myself so entrenched in a way I never expected, because when I went in, they were skinheads, they were nationalists. As I, evolved, they were people, they were human, and it was a lot harder work than I expected it to be.
So you found when you got in there and you ended up joining this group?
I never joined. I didn't have to join. Like even when I would go to different concerts and things, I went like this, heels and hoops. I mean, and I think that that was actually my in. I didn't do the haircut. I didn't act like a skin bird. I was just me. And I found that I didn't have to work very hard to get the information.
And these skinheads sound like they're not that different from anybody else.
Then children. I felt like I was dealing with my kids' children. I felt like they were children. So I felt like they were just, like all of us, we are so connected. I found that we are so connected, even on these extreme ends of the spectrum. And I found that when they felt a little bit of understanding and love, and I would say, hey, do we have to use that F word every other word? Do we not have, just being myself, a mother
Yeah.
in some ways. And even though I was not, engaging in that kind on that level, I found that that really worked. It was what was lacking in their lives, my experience.
Did you end up in an official undercover investigation?
Several, but we had to be very careful that I would just link everybody, because if Matt was going to use this stuff, I wasn't officially. I mean, we still get controversy over this stuff, and Matt would say, "You cannot do that," and I would say, "Okay, I got you, but I have this information. Do you want it or not?"
Right.
So, because it wasn't always happy home here once I got involved in some of it, because it wasn't really it's not the way things are done. But
Okay.
we were in a very unique situation as it was. So there were certain things that I didn't share, because legally I wanted him to be able to use the information. And so I was basically just a street source, is what I told him. I'm
Got
just
it.
your street source. I happen to be married to you too, but none of this is official. Although he was the one that taught me how to do so much of what I did.
I bet.
I mean, it wasn't just like I was a random girl that went out there and did that. I mean, once I was in, he kind of taught me how to be safe. He kept me safe, that kind of thing.
Are there a lot of Nazi skinheads here in the East Valley?
I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Growing up in the Valley, I grew up on the West Side. We both did. And I thought everyone loved each other. I mean, I just had no idea. And like I said, I created a Disney-esque type home, which you can never sustain, but I tried to do that. And to see that these different subsets were right here under our noses, and nobody knew, and nobody really, it wasn't affecting them. It was just a mind, like chaos in my mind, that all of this could be going on around us and nobody knew. And the minute we opened our eyes to it, I could see it. I could see it everywhere.
What does this gang do?
They hate anything that's not white. And it's not just a gang. It's not like your typical street gang where, you're Hispanic or Bloods, Crips, that kind of thing. They have no geographical boundary. So they're everywhere. They're not just in some neighborhood. But
So
then go
is
ahead.
anyone who's a racist a Nazi skinhead? I mean,
No,
how do
no,
we,
no.
where's the line?
They're at risk for the indoctrination into that.
Yes.
If you believe in the rhetoric and that kind of thing, you're at risk. And our children, that's the thing that really scared me, is that our children are at risk. And I just wanted to scream, oh my gosh, if this kid just had a lacrosse stick or a football or something, we wouldn't be going down this road. I just wanted to help. I want teachers and educators and sports people, and our sorry, I get so passionate about it. I want our coaches and everybody to know, because these are our children that are at stake here, and it affects them even the most. So no, but to answer your question, no, not everybody who believes. You can believe whatever you want, but when you start organizing and being a part of that, that's when they become more dangerous.
Okay, so you started out as an unofficial street informant, and then you ended up as a producer on an A&E series about polygamy. How did you
Yes.
get there?
So I had always been in, and that this is my world, as far as like, the arts, entertainment, that kind of thing. I'd put that on the shelf so I could raise my family, because I found that it was such an intense job. And so I would only do things that were local. So Matt and I went on we went to go meet another skinhead in Florida, for a group had asked us to go meet with him. And my undercover thing was just to be a producer. So while we were there, we met another producer that wanted Matt and I to do a TV show with her. And I said, absolutely no way I'm not doing some kind of with my family. But she kept talking about this polygamy show she was doing. And she was biracial, and she was having a hard time getting in. And I
Mm.
said, I can help you. I know if we just use this as an investigation, I can help you get in. And I have this face. And so together we can do this. And I thought I'd be there a week. I was only supposed to be there a week. And then as I got in and I saw what the women were going through, and the young girls, I had a 12-year-old at the time, a 12-year-old girl. I couldn't stop. I haven't stopped. And that was in 2014.
Okay, so for the last 10 years, you've been working with women who are the victims of polygamy
Yes.
here in Arizona?
And well, Arizona, Utah, and then Idaho, it took us all over the place. But it did start mostly it started in Utah with the Kingstons, moved our way to the FLDS, which is along the Utah-Arizona border, and then found that it crept everywhere, especially as Warren Jeffs was banishing the people from the community.
So how common is polygamy?
I think that at one point there was 30 to 50,000 people that we knew were practicing. So it seems like it wasn't, and I know that at least in the FLDS, the numbers have dwindled, but the Kingstons are growing exponentially, because the women are required to have a baby a year, or maybe not required, but highly suggested that they have a baby a year. And a lot of those women are having 18 babies. So you can
Wow.
imagine how quickly, if we have 10,000, 5,000, half of the congregation will be
Sure.
minors.
But all
So
these people are going to be related.
the Kingstons marry their half sisters.
Oh,
So that's part of
goodness.
keeping the bloodline of Christ pure in their actual doctrine.
Okay.
So, but FLDS has dwindled a little bit. But what we're finding is there are so many independent groups now. They're either loosely connected, they've made their own group, or they're practicing independently. So I just don't know that there's a number I can give you. I'd love to know. If you ever find out, let us know. I mean, there's just nothing official out there.
So for listeners who don't have any background in polygamy, why is polygamy dangerous? If you've got consenting adults, why is it a problem?
Oh, Billy, I was like, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Go get your freak on. Whatever you got, go do it. And so I was on a mission to find where it worked. I wanted it to work.
Really?
Well, yes, because I just wanted to say, why are we getting in? I knew the abuses, absolutely abuses, we have to get in it, and that's not okay. But I wanted to know where it worked, and I would say I have done 1,000 interviews, um, upwards to 1,000 interviews, and I have not seen anywhere where it works. Now I might not just be contacting those particular people, but I have not seen where it's been a blessing to women and children. And if it is, it's statistically low.
Right. I
So
mean, you've got a sample size of 1,000. That's a big sample.
yes. And in the Kingstons at least, I have not talked to, well, I have talked to one person who said that sexual abuse did not occur. And as we spoke deeper, she talked about when her uncle would watch her take showers. So there's not even a concept. It is so prevalent, at least in the Kingstons.
Okay, so out of the 1,000 women that you've interviewed, every single one of them experienced sexual abuse to some extent.
Well, that 1,000 was not just Kingston. That was, all of the
Right.
people I've talked to. But as far as Kingstons go, yes, every single one. And FLDS, it's very high, but it's not this at the same level, or at least they're not talking about it yet. It takes a minute.
Why do you think that polygamy is tied so closely to abuse?
That is such a great question. I think it's a breeding ground for pedophilia, though I would not say all men that are involved in polygamy are pedophiles. I do think that that goes unnoticed because of the fear of law enforcement and things like that. In the Kingstons, there are so many kids, and the wives are required to make their own livings. So I think it's kids raising kids, and there's just so many children. I mean, I had five.
Mhm.
I had to quit doing what I had to be home with them in order to give them the kind of upbringing that I wanted for them, in our crazy world. So if I had 15, I ache. How do you do all that? How do
Right,
you as a woman do all that?
right.
I feel like the women, Billy, I feel like if the women rose up, we could end polygamy. I feel like they have so much power, but they are so subjugated into this way of thinking that it's just not true.
I mean, if the women rose up, if the
The
women,
power is in the women. It really is. I've watched women say who stayed in the group who said, "My daughter will not marry that man." I watched, and then she became ostracized, and even eventually, there was problems. But her daughter never married into polygamy, so it was a generational choice. And I was like, for whatever people think of this woman or for staying in or whatever, she made a choice for her daughter. She stood up, and though none of her daughters from that point on have lived polygamy.
wow.
One woman. So
So,
if I can empower these women somehow, that's like if I can say, "Hey, you have more power than
right.
then that's my goal. Like that's my passion. That's what I want to say. Like almost too much. Like I think I become too much for people because I'm like, oh my gosh, they have so much power. We can stop this. We can save children. And that's ultimately what it's about. It's generational choices, and you can make a generational difference. I've seen it.
So in these polygamist cults, can we call them cults?
Yes, yeah. They call them high demand religions. A lot of people are saying, but I call it a cult. I think it's a cult. I think it fits the legal definition.
Okay. And I think one thing that's difficult to wrap our minds around is like, what is a cult? When does something become a cult? Can you describe that at all?
There's a lot of people that have different, I mean, people will call all kinds of things a cult, but I think this is a cult because it's so damaging. It's such mind control, and it's not just brainwashing. It's not even brainwashing, it's conditioning. It's something that happens from the day you're born. So if your parents say the sky is purple, I mean, why would you ever question that? The sky is purple. And it's just a conditioned response, a conditioned way of thinking, and with victims from top to bottom or bottom to top.
Do the people in these cults have access to the show?
That
Escape.
is okay. So my daughter, there were some beautiful when we started Escaping Polygamy, which was the Secrets of Polygamy is what we just aired in
Mhm.
2024. But
Mhm.
which is more investigatory. But
Mhm.
in 20 when we started Escaping Polygamy, I thought if we can watch, this is the reason I wanted to be a part of it, and I was not, the main producer by any means. I thought if we could show beautiful women doing beautiful things, that other people would mimic that, because we learn by mirroring. And so if they thought, oh, it's possible, then maybe it would happen. I had a 14-year-old girl, a sister of a 14-year-old girl call and say, my sister's suicidal, and they were making suicide pacts when we started this in 2014. I spoke to it because they didn't know any other way out.
Sure.
And so that's one of our slogans was escaping polygamy, there is a way out.
Right.
And now I had heard in 2024 that they're making pacts on how we're going to escape. So I know TV is so powerful. It is so powerful. And yes, I called it polygamy porn because they were sneaking into basements and stuff watching the show, which is exactly what I was hoping would happen.
Okay. All right. So somehow it's getting in, because certainly isolation has to be a important tactic to having the cult survive.
Well, and that was polygamy porn was in Kingston's when the FLDS, there's so many different groups, and I didn't even get into that. But the production company that I work for, River Media, fabulous. I said, I need DVDs, because they were still using DVDs that have no kind of logo on it. And then I would pass those out to the girls that asked for them so they could watch them, and they would hide them in their underwear drawers. I mean, so this was it was much harder to get out then than it is even now. And I think it's the awareness that shows like Escaping Polygamy, Secrets of Polygamy did, and brave women putting their stories out there that made such a difference.
You're working also on a book, The Hate Next Door. Tell me about the book.
The book is out. It came out last January. I think that the paperback came out just a couple months ago. It just details mostly when Matt, it started as therapy. I said, maybe you should get that down on paper. And it started with that. And it kind of details his journey through hate. And what we found in doing both work is that hate also permeates into this, white supremacy permeates into the polygamous groups. Like some of the teachings that the Kingstons were saying are Hitler got it right. He just did it without the priesthood. And they believe in that white, pure bloodline, the same kind of doctrine that white supremacy is teaching. So we found a lot of overlap in like the anti-government, the sovereign citizen type mentalities. So it seemed, even though they seemed worlds away, they intertwined. And some of the girls that got out, I actually saw one of them had a tattoo of an iron cross. I said, do you know what that means? And she did know what it meant. So
I don't know what it means.
an iron cross can be a symbol of white supremacy.
Oh,
Not for everybody. So, some people just get an iron cross because they're Irish, or they
sure.
all kinds of different things. So, and that's another reason we wrote the book, is so that some of these symbols we could tell coaches and teachers and lawyers and things, this is what to look for. This doesn't mean that they are practicing or believe that, but it's a question that should be asked.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the very dangerous thing and ask about what is going on currently politically, specifically with things like election denials and people just not believing information. What is going on?
I don't even know what to say, because when we went to publish the book, January 6th had just happened. We had just had conversations with, how come I cannot remember his name? So much of it was happening in Arizona.
Right.
So I had pictures that were already to some of the publishers that were looking at the book of the horned.
Yes, the shaman, right?
The shaman.
The Arizona shaman.
I had just spoken to him in October.
Yeah.
And so I had pictures of him, and we were like, he kind of grabbed me and we were dancing together. So I had already sent that. So they had already known that I had already had some kind of contact with some of the players here in Arizona. So there is such a divide, even within I'm in Queen Creek. I know you're in Gilbert. I mean, there's such a divide even right here within my own neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So even with what we do, I want to bring us together because there's so much common ground, so much in a community that and I get in trouble for saying this, but I think that if we can just kind of love each other and see each other's point of view, if we even get there, that we can come together. I mean, the political divide is real. It is so real.
Well, and it's like
It's surprising. It's so surprising. Like,
it's
how could it's shocking sometimes.
it's shocking, and the problem is in the extremes. There's a subset of the population, and it's growing, that seems to be acting more and more cult-like. Are you seeing that? Is that
Well,
true?
it is, and I hesitate to go there because that's more Matt's expertise. My expertise is how do we bring everybody together? How do
Yeah.
I get the information? How do I connect people?
Well, and what are the conditions that allow for that?
There's this there's a void. It's the belonging issue. I know it sounds so stupid and so simple, but it's where do these people belong? And I feel like it's a community issue. That's been my experience. I'm not trying to make it simplistic, but it's almost as if people don't know where to focus their attentions, what's something bigger than themselves that they can belong to. And I mean, we're seeing in the Christian nationalism, Jesus never taught what's being, spewed out there. He taught love, not hate. I mean, that couldn't be further from what he taught and believed.
Right. And I think I don't know, it seems obvious as somebody who was raised in the Christian faith, part of the Christian faith, that it seems so obvious, but it's not obvious because there are millions of people who are embracing the Christian nationalism movement.
And it's very, very, very close to the white nationalism movement.
It's
A lot
very,
of
it's incredibly sexist. Like whenever you've got groups that are put down other groups of people, like that should be a red flag, right? Something's going wrong.
and it's not just happening on the right, it's happening on the left. And if you go, Matt always says, if you go far enough right and far enough left, you're going to meet. And the rhetoric and the speak is so similar that
Sure.
it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous where we're at. And I
Calling each
don't
other
think
the
most of us are on these.
Antichrist.
I don't think most of us are on those extremes. I mean,
No,
but like you said, it's building. If we latch on to some of that and just a little bit, we think, oh, this is what I believe. Do you really? Because if you really believe in what Christ taught, it was nothing, or Christianity, it was
right,
nothing as to what you're spewing now, where this has ran.
right. But unfortunately, religion gets taken and twisted so often in these groups.
For sure, because like just when I was working, like the extreme the white Nazis, the white nationalists, when I was working them, that we were looking at things like Christian identity and the Norse mythology type
Mhm,
religions, and
mhm.
anything if you're doing it for God, it gets supercharged. Then you're just, I mean, it's like steroids. The
It is
violence,
because
the
I mean,
violence potential, all of it.
because if you believe you're doing this to save your soul or someone else's soul,
Or your white race.
people can justify things they wouldn't otherwise be able to justify in the name of faith and God. And it's so hard because, the religion, the number of people participating in religion is going down. And generally religion and attending religious services are a good thing, are a positive thing, but now you've got more and more people rejecting it, and it's moving more and more extreme.
But religion gives us a community. It gives us something bigger than ourselves. It gives us something that we can work towards. And as we lose that, I think, like I said, I feel like that void is happening, and we're filling it with other crazy type things. Even the guy that just tried to kill Trump, the assassination, he was looking for a cause bigger than himself, and that was on the left. So
Right,
we're seeing it everywhere.
right.
So we're not political people. We try not to be political people. We just try to say,
Yes,
hey, these are the facts. This is what's out there, and this is what we have personally seen, and especially Matt, my husband, what is out there. And so you can dispute whatever, but here are the facts of
right,
what we're seeing.
right. But one of the difficult things right now is anyone can make news.
Yes.
And our news organizations are not all trustworthy. And then people don't know who to believe.
And that Matt and my husband says that too. He said they're hate organizations. Sometimes he'll listen to the news, mainstream news, and he said this is nothing different than a hate organization. So because they're spewing this, and where do we go?
Right.
Matt and I used to listen to the BBC or news from overseas, and even that's it's hard to find your information. It really is.
Really,
And
really
it's just
challenging.
so crazy that we're starting to like embrace things that I've never thought our country would even. What was underground? Matt wrote a op-ed for the USA Today. Well, we wrote one, and the rhetoric that I was getting back on our Facebook page, our social media, was crazy because it was the rhetoric. They were the exact same pictures that I was getting on the white Nazi sites back when I started. The exact same pictures, the exact same speech. And so we went from underground to mainstream, which is really frightening.
Right. It does feel like things that we knew existed, but like, that's not real, right? That's not real. Nazis? Like white supremacists? Like who? Like, nobody believes that, right? And then you just see more and more people bravely come out and say, yes, we do. And you see the group build, and it's like, what is happening?
Well, Matt started talking about this in 1994. He went public with it in 1997. It's been around for a while and it's been real. It's just that we've taken it from the underground into the mainstream, and I don't know why it could catch wings at all. Why is any decent human being thinking that this is okay?
Right, right. I wonder if burning down both political parties would help. I don't know if it would, but I wonder because
Yeah.
it certainly seems to be so awful and so negative right now.
I'm going to bring this local. My son was on the Basha High School winning football team. They took state. I mean, everyone said they couldn't do it. This was 2023 or 2022, I believe. Then no one said they could do it. Coach Matt from Basha High School brought all kinds of ethnicities. We had people from Russia. We had Black, white, Jewish, we had everything. He brought them together, and he said that the year before they almost won, but then the next year he brought everybody together at camp and said, I need you guys all to talk, and I want you to talk. And they were all being funny or whatever boys do. And then he said, try it again. And he goes, I want you to really know your teammates. And he did that. And my son said they were crying. And my son doesn't cry. He said that they really got in. And they started learning about different things about gangs, about homes without fathers, and then living where we live, more of a socioeconomical, anyway, it was a gamut, and they really got to know each other, and they came together as a team, and they won. They took state. And my feeling is if we can do this on a local level, if Basha High School, Coach Mack and all of his coaches can do that to our boys, bring all those boys together, we can do this as a nation. There are smart people that we've got to put aside our agenda and really come together for our country and for our community and for our families. But it starts locally. It really does.
This is Billie Tarascio, owner of Win Without Law School and Modern Law. Win Without Law School is a program that operates nationally and helps people who are representing themselves or who just need more help. If you are in a family court case and you're feeling confused, you need direction, you need help figuring out questions to procedural or strategic issues, Win Without Law School can help. At Win Without Law School, you've got two experienced attorneys, me and my partner, Julie Lebenz, who can guide you through the court process and help you troubleshoot your case. You've got access to courses, planners, checklists, and live Q&A. Our live Q&A is where you can get help from us and your community. We also have a closed Facebook group just for members where you all can share your experience, share your pleadings, get advice, and mentorship. Join us today at winwithoutlawschool.com. That's winwithoutlawschool.com. What do you think it is about Arizona that seems to make us susceptible to polygamy and, you know, all of the January 6th people that we recognize from also down in Phoenix? Like what is it about Arizona?
I don't know. I feel like everything kind of leads back to Arizona. Like even the leader of no, it does. Like the leader of the Oath Keepers.
Oh,
He
really?
even he did his clerkship here in Arizona.
Wow.
So it's just like all roads lead to Arizona, and I don't know what it is. Are we the wild, wild west? Are we free thinkers? Is there good things about Arizona that makes us a breeding ground for some of this stuff? I mean, things that if we channeled in the right direction, maybe we could be an example to our to the nation instead of some of the things that we're finding ourselves in. And it's historically this way. It's historically been this way.
Which way?
We're a breeding ground for the white supremacy. I mean, it's
What?
generational. I mean, obviously, it's been around for a while.
Okay. Well, maybe that's why then. Maybe it's just it started here a long, long, long time ago, and now, as Arizona gets bigger, we're seeing it more. But there does, I mean, every state, every area has a culture, and Arizona certainly has a culture of libertarianism, of government not regulating things, of people making their own choices. Like that generally feels like the Arizona culture. But how that translates to gangs and polygamy and white supremacy, I just don't understand.
I don't either. And I was born and raised here. My husband Matt, his family goes back to the legislature territorial days. So we've been here a long while. And I just don't have the answers for all that. Some of the things that we've seen, even with Gilbert Goons and things that we saw, was so shocking to me that could be happening right here in our
Oh,
home. And the white
absolutely shocking.
supremacy, all of it.
Completely shocking. But like you said, all of it, all of it centers around where do I belong? Who am I? Who accepts me?
I really think it does. I really think it does. And if you don't have that kind of acceptance at home or in a church, in a community, you're gonna find it. As humans, I mean, I don't have the answers. I wish I did, and I'll keep studying until I can know more. But it seems to be that's the common denominator. Where do I belong? How do I fill this void of something that's greater than me? And where do I find that love?
Right. And if somebody doesn't have that, they're going to be very susceptible to recruitment.
They are for indoctrination is what it is. And if you have any and I've asked other people this that have been involved in some of this, it's lots of times it's introduced by a family member. We're not born to hate. We're not
Right.
born to any of that. So it's introduced somewhere. And if we've raised our children to a point to we put them out in the world, be aware of who their associations are and things like that because it's introduced somewhere. It's not innate.
How old are your kids?
I had my son Jackson, my youngest, just graduated last year.
Oh my gosh.
So, but he knew all of this kind of stuff, which kind of threw the Gilbert Goons. I know we're all over the place, but that's what threw us into it all. Is because I felt like we dodged a bullet. My husband will say, no, it was never a problem. But I think that we're naive as parents if we think that this can't happen in our own homes. And if it
I
affects
agree with
one
you.
child, it affects all of our child.
Yeah,
Because
I
some of
agree.
my children were really strong and would never, others were more susceptible to, I know that. So we made sure that they were involved in different kinds of things. Every child is different.
I really worry about college.
No, I think they grow. I don't want to say no. Okay, my youngest just went to college last year, so he was playing football for NAU, and that's my youngest, and I've got four above him, and so we've done that. You can navigate college.
Okay.
I think raising older children is harder,
Is it?
but I think it is as a mom. But as far as they're also brains are developing. If they've got that firm foundation that I feel like this area gave my children. Um, they're okay. They're okay. It's harder on mama.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I worry because I don't have eyes on. My oldest is a freshman. And so I don't have eyes on, who are you spending time with every day and what do your activities look like? And, so it's definitely it's different, It's a
It's
different
different.
phase.
And hey, being a parent is tough, and even when you're really trying to be on it, it's tough.
Right.
And I don't want anybody, I don't want to oversimplify that. See what your children, who their associations are, what they're seeing online. I mean, that's tough.
Right.
It's important, and it has to be done in order to keep all of our kids safe.
We're going to have you back because I want to talk about the details of women escaping polygamy because it's not that different from women escaping abusive relationships and abusive marriages.
It is not that different. And that was something that I learned as well. And so many of those women can see themselves in the women that are escaping. And that's been,
Really?
yes, they can. And it's just been so helpful. This is why we are all connected. If one of our children is lost, all of our children, this is a community effort, and it's the same. That's why those women that are involved in those abusive situations can see themselves in the Rachel Jeffs of the world. I love her for speaking out like she has, because she's helped so many women who can see themselves in her extreme space where they
Right.
probably didn't see it before.
Oh my gosh, it's so valuable. It's so valuable. So yes, thank you so much, Tawni, for coming on the show. I could talk to you for hours and hours, but it's been a wonderful, wonderful episode, and thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I really appreciate the work you're doing at informing people. We all have a work to do, and I appreciate what you're doing as well. And that's sincere.
Thanks so much for listening to the Modern Arizona podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, make sure to download it, like it, leave a review, and share it with your friends. If you know someone who would be a good guest or you would like to be on the Modern Arizona podcast, make sure to give us an email or reach out to us at mymodernlaw.com.